What's up, everybody? Shalom, shalom, kings and queens. You're rocking with King Conscious. And over here on KKTV, we do it a little different here. What you see behind me is Minnesota Rule 220. I know it's going to be kind of hard for you guys to see. That's not really the purpose here. So, I mean, it is. That's the topic, but that's not really the purpose. It's for you to see it. You can look this up. This is just so you know you got the right website or the right reading. You know, if it doesn't say this, you know, general rules, you know, then you don't, and the rest of it, you don't have the right place. Which is not hard to find. Rule 220, Minnesota Rule 220. All right, so like I said, I'm not a licensed attorney. I'm not a bar member, nor will I ever be. I am a private educator. I do this for education purposes only. I'm not getting paid to do this. I am not sent by any government agent or anything like that, man. So anyway, man, we're going to jump right into it. And I've been seeing a lot of speculation, a lot of misleading information going around some of these YouTube videos. Now, there are a lot of very informative people out there. Shout out to Yusuf L. Shout out to Hellraiser. There's a couple more. Don Kalam. Shout out to Don Kalam, man. But I'm not here to give out shout outs, man. There's just a few people, you know, like I said, man, if y'all need to learn something that I'm not speaking on yet, feel free to go out and, you know, venture out. You know what I'm saying? If you like this video, feel free to hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, share the video, share the content. I do a lot of studying. I put a lot of effort into these videos and into my teachings. I don't like to mislead anyone. I would never try to do that. If you guys find anything that I say not valuable, not credible, show me where you saw that or where you can prove that, and I'll go back and correct that on one of my videos. Other than that, feel free to comment below any questions. All right, so let's jump right into it. The certificate of live birth is not worth the value. It is, in a sense, but it's almost like the title to a fund or a trust that has value in it. Anytime a trust is created, a bond is also created. So by doing so, when you were born, your parents signed up for the certificate of live birth, right? Okay, so when they did that, they sent it off to. They give you this little birth certificate type of deal with a barcode on it. They say it has no value, but it has a barcode on it. We'll speak more about barcodes and how they have value and how they represent value in another video. However, this is not the video for that. So just stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll show you more about the private side. What I do know, I'm not one who claims to know everything. I don't have all the questions or all the answers to your questions. However, I do know a lot, and I am also wise enough to know what I don't know and what I can learn. There's nothing you can throw at me that would fool me because I'm just too informed and too in the know. Anyway, so the birth certificate has, when they create a trust, it has a trust attached to it. So when they created the trust, they created a bond to bond the trust to you, the living being. So they created a birth certificate by the state. Now the state, basically granted the state to bring you aboard into becoming a U.S. citizen, artificial entity, legal entity, which only exists on paper. You cannot be created out of thin air nor on a piece of paper. So any license that you get, such thing like that, this is why these things are in all capital letters, because they're off of the birth certificate and not you, this living sentient, and the living birth. You know what I mean? So I'm going to jump into this other part, and I'm going to say the certificate, start by saying the certificate of live birth is not the same thing as a birth certificate, as I just basically broke down to you. The certificate of live birth actually shows a living being was born, and that a title over the birth certificate, what Minnesota Rule 220 talks about, the title over the birth certificate / trust estate, which we'll talk about in another video as far as trust and estates and the merge of trust and estates to become one. And same thing as marriages and stuff like that. Marriage license, they take your account that we're talking about and they merge that into one and they call it marriage. You're also deemed incompetent anytime that you go and ask someone, hey, can you give me a license? May I have permission to marry this person? Because in order to have a license, you have to get a permit, which is asking for permission to do something that is otherwise illegal, which these are your natural rights. So anyway, moving on, we'll get into Minnesota Rule 220 and just pay attention, follow along. The birth certificate was created by the state as a warehouse receipt. Look these things up. A warehouse receipt is basically showing the record that an entity was created as a public security for the United States corporate state. 28 USC, you can look this up, 28 USC defines the United States as a corporation. This is why you may hear people say, oh, United States is a corporation or not. They're really not a corporation, but they are a corporation in a sense. So they are really a non-profit, for-profit, unincorporated business operating out of an unincorporated business trust, which this we'll get into later too. These are private businesses. You want to open up a business, get you an unincorporated business trust. That doesn't mean that it was once incorporated, now it's unincorporated, now it's not incorporated. That means it was never incorporated into their business. If you're going to bank in Oklahoma, bank in Oklahoma, if you're going to bank in the States, if you're going to bank in Texas, if you're going to bank in the United States corporation up under their jurisdiction, and their policy, not laws, corporate policies, well then, what do you expect? You're gonna have to follow their rules. You're gonna have to pay them. You're gonna get taxed, all this. You don't get taxed under unincorporated business trust, but we'll talk about that. Okay, so the birth certificate was created by the state as a warehouse receipt, basically showing the record that an entity was created as a public security for the United States corporate state. Now, a public security is same thing as your social security. Okay, social is public, domestic, social media, domestic violence, public violence. You see what I'm saying? So it is basically the initiation of you being federally employed as a federal citizen. This is why your account number or your employee number is the account number of your social security card. This is why you have a banking number on the back. It starts with a letter, and those red letters, it starts with a letter, and the letter represents the bank that it's attached to, and then you have your account, your account number, your routing number, and your account number is on the front. So account number on the front, routing number on the back. We'll get into all of that. We'll talk about the zip codes and how they are routing numbers. All routing numbers belong to the Federal Reserve. We'll talk about it though. The United States was granted the ability to have its own federal citizens. The Social Security account is the public trust that they use to attach a debt to you and tax your straw man into oblivion. It is also known as the debtor. People say the straw man. This is known as the debtor, or in legalese, it's known as the ens leges. All entities are known as a debtor from the moment that it is created. Understand that no business can continue to grow and prosper without your help. This is why they have all these ads and stuff like this. Come in, spend your money, spend your credit, get a loan so they can get paid, right? So you are the true creditor and they are the true debtor. So when you go and you look at it, you go get your car at the lot or something like that, and you look and it says debtor and it has your name and it says TIN number, tax identification number, and it has your social security number, that is your TIN number. It's a business that they're operating your name out of. Take back your business. Your name is already a business. Take it back. Take it back. Stop letting them control you. Stop letting them run you. Stop letting them fool you. Open your eyes, guys. This is the first step. So, because it needs creditors to bring it credit and value, as I stated, this is why all corporations are debtors and the living sentiments are the real creditors. This is why it is important to become the secured party of the strawman entity, aka the all caps birth certificate name. Certificate of live birth is upper lowercase. The date that it was received by the state registrar is marked on that certificate of live birth. That is when the state created a fake you, a corporate version of you, a straw man, a trust. By taking back proper ownership of the certificate of live birth, Minnesota Rule 220, or the certificate of life, to say, hey guys, I am alive, because you are assumed dead and lost at sea after 7 years. So after 7 years, your unclaimed estate is legally labeled as an abandoned estate. Go look these things up, guys. Abandoned estate. Leaving the corporate state creditors the ability to claim their estate. I recommend everybody reading Creditors and Their Bonds, because Creditors and Their Bonds breaks all this stuff down as far as bonds and how they work and why these third-party corporations are coming in, taking your assets and your property. You can't play in a game and say, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Hey, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And you don't know the rules to the game. You cannot, everything that you do operates under the Uniform Commercial Code. From the corporate government on down to Walmart, your local neighborhood store, convenience store, all the above. You see what I'm saying? So it's important, guys. Look these words up. So after, like I said, after 7 years, they can come in and claim your estate. Just go look up, do a quick Google search of abandoned estate. So this application for the birth certificate is the application to be brought aboard to become an artificial entity, such as the straw man or the ens legis in legalese. It is also known as a person, an individual, a corporation, and etc. Look it up. And remember that corporations can only deal with other corporations. And this is why everything you sign up for is in upper lower casing lettering until you reach the actual contract. Then you will notice the all caps name in different variations they create to tax you under, such as John L. Doe, or John Doe L, or L. John Doe, or any other variation. So each entity is another entity connecting to the trust or your trust account or your trust estate account. It is also known as capitalist maximus, ultimately corporate versions of you, not the real versions of you. This all caps name is what's known as capitalist maximus, CAPITALIS, Maximus, MAXIMUS. The IRS manual states that anything involving commerce must be depicted by the all caps lettering. And this is why your bills are usually always in all capital lettering. So the purpose of, first of all, here's a good one. They sent this, some of you might know what I'm talking about. They send these little medical cards, medical discount cards, or AAA cards and stuff like that and say, hey, your card is ready to use. It's got your name on it and everything, right? But over here, it's addressing you as the upper lowercase entity, but on that card, it says all capital letters and so forth, right? So, yeah, just pay attention, man. Pay attention to stuff, you know what I mean? Like when you watch the news and they say United States and it's in all capital letters, or it's in capital T, lowercase H-E, capital U, lowercase N-I-T-E-D, United, something like that. That is the corporate entities. Okay, so they are actual, in fact, two different entities, but we'll talk about that later in another episode. So the purpose of authenticating the birth certificate or certificate of live birth is essentially to put on record that you are not, in fact, the all caps name, and that you are, in fact, a living, breathing being, and that a birth did actually take place. And that you are not the commercial entity on the actual birth certificate, the all caps birth certificate, not certificate of live birth that is representing you, but it's not properly representing you, but it is the most thing that can properly identify you. That's why you have to have it to get an ID and stuff like that, not your birth certificate. You can look at the birth certificate being your settlement documents, seeing that it is stating who you are and where you are from. The certificate of live birth should be enough to identify who you actually are, and not a state-issued ID. that would mean you are, in fact, a federal state citizen. If for any reason you cannot get a copy of your certificate of live birth, you can have 2 witnesses and a notary assist in getting it. Sometimes you may even need to go through a court's proceeding. But whatever you have to do to get it, it is definitely worth it. So if you don't have a copy, or your parents don't have a copy, and you're just having trouble getting it from a vital statistics or the health department, you might have to go through the court system. So just be sure that you get the long form and not the short form. Or in other words, be sure you get the certificate of live birth, not the birth certificate. You'll know because the birth certificate has the state seals on it and stuff like that. Certificate of live birth does not. It actually states the date it was received by the state registrar. That is what you're looking for, Minnesota Rule 220. You can also get the Minnesota Rule 220 affidavit if you type in Minnesota Rule 220 affidavit PDF. You'll get it. Might even drop some links there for you, man, to a couple of websites I like to use. I don't want to get struck or nothing, though. I don't know how that works. I got to check that out. Again, you got to know the rules to the game before you start doing stuff. So now that you have your correct certificate of live birth, you will need to go down to a full service Secretary of State. You'll know that it's a full service Secretary of State if they, in fact, have an index department. So when you go in, ask them, say, hey, where's your index department? If they say we don't have one, you're not at a full service Secretary of State. I got mine from the health department. Same difference. But you have to make them, if they try to say, hey, man, the birth certificate is the same thing. No, it's not. Make sure that you get the long form or certificate of live birth, whichever terminology they recognize, use it. So once you are in there, or if you mail it in, you will either receive or download the request form online or in person, or simply write on a paper to please authenticate this certificate of live birth for Taiwan or Egypt or any other non-Hague Convention country that you choose. You can find a list of the IRS websites if you just type in the Hague Convention and /IRS. It'll take you right to their website or that portion of their website. So the online form is called the D Delta S Sam 4194. That is DS 4194. And that is the form that you will need. You can find it online. You can also, like I said, write it out like I did. I didn't send in their form because I don't like to use their forms because I don't know if they have adhesion contracts just like the birth certificate application when that you didn't know they were going to write a bond. Your parents didn't know they were going to write a bond and stuff like that. These are adhesion contracts. You see what I'm saying? And then when your parents went down and took that down to the Social Security office, they said, well, get your child's Social Security number so that they can work. Well, they didn't know no better because they didn't have to work. We'll get all of that in a loan for it. That's all involuntary servitude. Involuntary servitude. Okay? So on that DS 4194 form, it'll all be your personal information you should obviously know, and if not, hey, figure it out. But it's gonna be your personal information. So it is important that when it says the country of origin, it's very important that you have a non-Hague country there. Whatever you go with there, you need to go with all of your documents where you're putting that country of origin. So me, I like to go under Taiwan because the people that I learn from go under Taiwan, and I've had success in everything I've done. My foreign grantors trust, everything is in Taiwan, including this YouTube channel once I get everything that I need to do in order to do so. Right now it's not, but it will be. So anyway, if you are, and that's when I make my channel with LLC and all that, I'm just taking it one step at a time. So if you are mailing it in, like you will be doing when you send it off to Washington, D.C., like mailing it into your state capital Secretary of State because there's not one in your city or town or whatever, then you will need to send it certified mail so that you get the return signed green note stating that they got it. They can't say that they didn't get it. And that is also a private remedy to make these corporations respond. So they can't say that they didn't get it if they signed for it, because documentation is everything. Keep all of your documentation. All of these things you're sending off, keep it, because all of these things are very important. Okay? You're going to put these things in your non-UCC filing, which we'll talk about in another video, which I've already spoke about it a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a lesson on that or whatever, to try to help you guys. So you will also need to include in that package a prepaid return mail envelope so that they can mail it back to you. Be sure to include the money order for the authentication fee and the certificate of live birth, obviously, that you want to be authenticated. Just look it up in your city and state for the actual fees. You can do a quick Google search. Now, I know that they can range from about $8 to about $20 per authentication, but once you get it back, you will have then completed step 1 of the authentication process. So you will have a state seal from your state and a document attached to that certificate of live birth. Congratulations. You have just completed your step 1 of authentication process. Now, bear in mind, you only need to authenticate once. After all that is done, all the others will already be on record as the official authentic copies of that authenticated version. Okay? So when you send it off to DC, you're going to definitely do the same thing. You're going to put the envelope in there, the return mail, and all that. Okay? So the address I have is different from the one that I originally used, but it is up, but you can look it up. And call ahead and ask questions. Don't be afraid to call these people, man. I call these people all the time. If you sound confident, like you know what you're talking about, they're going to help you. If you don't, they're not. They're going to try to get you on off the phone. Okay, so the address I have is different, and the address I have is 619th Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20006. But the other one that I believe I used on file would be the CAPPT/S/TO/AUT 44132 Mercure Circle, P.O. Box 1206, Sterling, Virginia. SERLING, Sterling, Virginia 20166. And Mercure is MERCURE, Circle, P.O. Box 1206. And that's Sterling, Virginia 20166. The phone number that I have for them on file is 202-485-8000. Now, I believe I sent mine to Washington, D.C. It's been a few years, but I know it made it to Washington, D.C. because on that document, you'll see that it says Washington, D.C., just like the one from your state. Okay, so I believe that is where I sent mine, is D.C. But don't be afraid to call these people and ask questions, guys. For they are our fiduciaries. It is their fiduciary duty, aka public trustees that the Constitution speaks about, public officials. So you must sound confident, otherwise they will play you to the left, guys. It just is what it is. So if you don't get your answers the first time, or the second or third time, or the fourth time, fifth time, man, keep hanging up. Get somebody different, talk to them, take what you learned from the last conversation to the next conversation. So if people act like they are clueless, ask for a competent officer, meaning a supervisor, etc. The lingo you use shows your education level, and they are taught to recognize it. They will play you to the left if you don't know what you are talking about. So don't give up. Live and learn from trial and error. So please note that there is also no such thing as a secured party creditor. Guys, there's a secured party and creditor process. So basically, the UCC contract trust that you'll learn about, if you don't already know about, is the secured party over the strawman public domestic entity, legal entity. It's the secured party over that. So and this is one way. Now, I'm going to show you another way. But you are just a beneficiary to the foreign grantors trust that holds title to all of these trusts. You see what I'm saying? Third time removed. So if that makes sense, I try to make it, as plain as possible when I actually make the video for it. Now, basically what you're doing, you are okay. The other way, real quick, the secured party. Jonah Bay likes to speak and say that make the foreign grantor's trust the secured party over that trust or this straw man because it is foreign and it can use foreign exchange and different stuff like that. Anyway, I'll break that down more in another video. So you are making one trust be the secured party for another, and the other trust will be the creditor of the other trust. And you, the living being, are only you, the living being, are only the beneficiary to that trust. See, the straw man's job is to go and gain as much capital for the trust for the benefit of the beneficiaries, aka you, the living being. Because it has to go out there and operate in public for you. Because you, the living being, can never operate in the public, if you know what I mean. Because that's why they always give you all capital lettering within the contracts, the IRS manual. Go look these things up, guys. So that foreign grantor's trust is what you'll hear me talk about, the 9-8 prefix trust, which is the first two digits is 9-8. That represents it's a foreign grantor's trust. Also bear in mind that any document with a notary stamp can be authenticated. The authenticated birth certificate grants you the full faith and credit of the United States, which leads back to the House Joint Resolution, aka House Joint Resolution, or HJR 192, Public Law 73-10 and 48 Statute, Section 48, page 112 and 113. It is that impartial that they made it a state law and a statute. I believe it is, don't quote me on the page 112 or 113, but I believe it. I believe that's it. But the full faith and credit is the full backing and obligation that they made to discharge your debts, the nationals' debts. You are the nationals, guys. You are not U.S. citizens. Go look up what a U.S. citizen is and tell me, and come back and tell me you still want to claim that you are a U.S. citizen. Look up that versus a non-resident alien once you start understanding the processes and what you're doing here. Okay? So note that the certificate of live birth was in ink printed on American banknote paper, aka chattel paper. Look these things up. Yes, they still refer to the birth certificate as chattel paper. And it used to actually say American Banknote Company on it. And that is before the company went out of business, allegedly, and it's full faith and credit in its citizens document, and it's a full faith and credit in a financial capacity as well. See, the straw man is essentially represented by the birth certificate, which the straw man basically is the birth certificate entity, because it only exists on paper. It has no soul and no life. Only you can give it a sense of life by acting as if you were the straw man, which they lead you to believe. But corporations can only deal with other corporations. Hence, a corp is a dead, no life, and no soul entity. So the corporations are creditors of the corporate states. Article 4 of the United States Constitution is the full faith and credit. Article 1 of Section 4, there are 4 sections. It gets its name from Section 1, which states full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. This is one reason you'll send in a copy of your authenticated certificate of live birth in which your court issues and proceedings. So you'll be sending these a copy of that in with your pleadings and stuff like that, man, because the court is the paperwork. The court is the documents. You are the self-governed government. You are to govern the government. Guys, wake up, man. Realize the power y'all got, man. Realize who we are, man. So, like I said, I'm learning, man. So just follow me on my quest. I don't claim to be the most knowledgeable of or any of that. You know what I mean? I could be wrong on some things. I can admit that. I own up to that. Just show me proof. So If you have a driver's license from New York and you are in California, well, you'll be protected. Same thing with no driver's license and having an international driver's ID, which you'll learn about if you follow me on my quest. And this also means if I'm in Oklahoma, I can't discriminate against another person in my state just because they are from another state. You know, I can't make it harder for them to get a job, a loan, a car, a boat, etc. Because otherwise that would be discrimination. So there is an extradition clause in Article 2 where persons that are charged with treason, felony, or other crimes at the request of the executor of the state can be extradited. Which is why you see, you'll learn about your name becoming its own state and you've been the executor of that state or executive administrator, something like that. You see what I'm saying? Which is why you see people flee the state, they committed a crime within, and then get extradited back to that state. The crime was committed in, so that the state can pursue criminal charges or whatnot. So the little three-dotted section is like a fugitive slave clause. Now that says that people that are held in bondage and servitude, if they escape to another state, they are still in bondage and servitude. Like runaway slaves, you see what I'm saying? Okay, so, and modern day slavery, as we all live in today, under this system that I'm teaching about. So that says that, and that also says that they should be returned at the request of the person that has been harmed. Not the person who is the slave, but the doggone slave owner, the slave master. Now it was slid in and it got passed. Then later that would be expanded upon by the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act, giving it more enforcement power. But it is ultimately in the Constitution, or at least it was, but later nullified within the 13th Amendment. Okay, so Article 4, Section 3 is about states and territories. The full faith and credit is defined as a phrase to describe the unconditional guarantee or commitment by one entity to back up the interest and principal of another entity's debt. This is why you have these three trusts I'd speak about, to go ahead and discharge these debts and protect your assets and so forth. Now, the full faith and credit commitment employed by the government to help lower the borrowing cost of smaller, less stable government of a government-sponsored agency. When this occurs, the smaller government or agency takes on the backer's credit quality. We'll speak more about that later. A breakdown of the full faith and credit. The Government National Mortgage Association, Ginnie Mae, is one of a government's agency that is backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, will never default on its loan obligations. The full faith and credit of the U.S. government essentially confers risk-free status to securities such as U.S. Treasuries. Similarly, securities backed by Ginnie Mae mortgages have lower yields than other mortgage-backed securities because they are assumed to carry less risk. We'll talk about mortgages and how you're supposed to sign as the executor and this, that, and the next, and a house is paid for after the first 3 years lawfully. Legally and lawfully is two different things. Legal is just company policy of the United States corporation who's here to provide governmental services. And they do a very good job. And we'll talk about that later. I don't want to run off. But all certificates are securities, from a birth certificate to a school certificate and on down to a car title and etc. If it took your social security card to get it, it is basically a security because you'll get some type of certificate. So this is where the confusion came in about the TDA, Treasury Direct Accounts, which do in fact exist, but not in the manner or fashion most people were led to believe it was. So that concludes today's lesson on how and why you need to authenticate the certificate of live birth, and that, the benefits of doing so. And I hope this helps everyone. And if you all have any questions, feel free to ask. I will help as much as I can. I don't get paid to teach here on YouTube. I live an average life, going to work daily life. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to donate to the channel, my Cashapp will be in the description below. Feel free to email me with questions or assistance at consciousknowledgetv@gmail.com. That's consciousknowledgetv@gmail.com. Now, smash that like button to help more people reach this message. You know what I'm saying? To obtain the valuable, informative message. If you guys did like the and find the, you know, the video, the content, and you find this information informative and to your liking, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. It's free. It helps me by you hitting the like button. If you're not going to donate to the channel, that's the least you could do is hit the like button. You see what I'm saying? So, like I say, man, I hope this helps everyone understand, you know, the process, why you're doing this, what the birth certificate is, what the difference is between the certificate of live birth and the birth certificate. And like I said, man, everything and anything that I speak upon, you can look it up. That's why I gave you references and stuff like this. Now, I speak. If I speak on it, it's facts, man. I'm not going to speak on anything without doing extensive research and stuff like that on my behalf. I've always been like that. I don't like to speak on stuff I don't know. So I'm just here to help you guys understand, you know, the process and stuff like that. So hopefully this helps. I'm not a lawyer. Again, I'm not a bar member or anything like that. So follow me. Please share the content if you do enjoy the content and if you think it could help someone else who's not in the know. It's been nice. Kings and queens, I'll catch you in the next video. You're rocking with conscious knowledge, man. All right, man. King Conscious, I'm out.